Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
All right, Rama's right here too. He's kissing the microphone. He always has his head between us when we're making videos.
Yes, he does. He says, sniff, sniff.
Yes. Please do subscribe so you can catch up on all these videos. You know, guys, maybe do a deep dive in some of these playlists because we've touched on a lot over the years. You know, again, we've been doing this for 7. Holy cow. 7 years. 7 years. Wow. Wow. So do check out some of the stuff that we've done before. I want to start just by giving you guys a glimpse. You know, and one of the complaints I'll have is that you don't have a good, totally up-to-date human family tree, so to speak. And you see Neanderthals, Denisovans, modern humans, Heidelbergensis, Erectus as well. I mean, this is so lacking. There are so many more to add to this. Why do we constantly see different branches, different humanoid species upon the earth that all of a sudden, here today, gone tomorrow? Boom. Here today, gone tomorrow. Here today, gone tomorrow. But something is in its place. Is it progress? Is it regression?
We have all these beautiful textbooks that explain everything to us, like, you know, supposedly where we came from. You know, they paid a lot of people some really good money to put together our family tree. But what they don't say is that these people put together the family tree in a way that, well, we'll never quite know the truth. And that's the part that was paid for.
Yeah, and so people will always be asking, you know, well, what do you believe as far as wanting to give a label? Well, you know, we're not communists, and we're not capitalists. We're not fascists. You know, we're not really socialists. We don't follow any of those systems. We're in the world, but we're trying not to be of the world, which is, again, something that's biblical. Yet, we do believe in creation, but we also believe in a form of evolution. Does it have to be one without the other? Well, that's the thinking. It's always getting you into one camp or another camp. When really the answer lies in a zigzagging pattern. Things are interwoven, and many things are right in front of our faces. And this is real. This is real. What you're seeing is not science fiction. That's a live lamb fetus being grown in the place of its mother's womb. It's in an artificial womb. The future is the past is the future, and it's also right now. It's the present as well. It's just the present that we don't really see, or we don't completely understand. We don't even understand how we really got here in the first place. You know, you certainly don't understand it by going through textbooks or by taking any one religious authority's perspective on it.
You know, I would ask anyone who's going through an awakening to look up, say, you know, in your area, wherever you went to public school, and just pull up maybe 20 years ago, how many times they have rewritten the history books in that public school. How many times have they rewritten the science books in that public or private school? You know, how many times they have revised all of this stuff. And I'll bet you, after you take a look at that, you'll realize how our history is truly given to us by beings that just need to control their narrative and not let us have that freedom of expression and understanding who we are. The only reason we have amnesia is because they have wiped us clean to where we think that our history comes from something that it doesn't. So if we were to go within, we can definitely remember who we are, but they don't teach us to go within. They teach us everything that you need is on the outside of you.
And this was in a child's hospital. It's the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Children's Hospital. Children. And now we look over here. Artificial Womb Farm. This is part of the reality that's staring us right in the face. You know, there's a drone taking off. The drone's going to replace the stork, and we're going to visit the stork idea too. You know, everything is right in front of our face. This reminds me of The Matrix. You remember that scene in The Matrix where Neo wakes up from a pod? Let me pull that up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's really, everything just hit home for me like that. I just thought it was so disgusting, you know, but the way that things are put together, you can't help but entertain that might be a truth somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you know, come into grips with this. Neo awakens from the pod. Now, it was a hard awakening. Absolutely. I think The Matrix was really fantastic in so many ways. The layers. Because when Neo's in The Matrix, he does what? He does the Superman thing. He goes flying. I mean, I go flying all the time. That's part of our astral projecting and taking control, lucid dreaming. Control of our dreams is the beginning of understanding how to control our reality when we are awake. And again, 1/3, if we're lucky to get a good night's sleep, or what we would say is a good night's sleep, 1/3 of our life is spent in the dream world. When we're out of the body, that's the totality of our existence. Although there is a sort of dreaming that we've found, and there's a lot of stuff that I will hope that you guys will please forgive us, because there's so much stuff that comes through every day, every single day in meditation and in our work with channeling the guides, that sometimes, I mean, big stuff passes by. I really should be handwriting all this stuff down, but then that would take hours, but then it would be worth it. But then, you know, it's just, what do you do with your time? You know, and yet time is an illusion of sorts in the bigger scheme of things. But Neo wakes up, right? And in the Matrix, when they plug in the Matrix, he could take control of everything in that Matrix. I mean, he's the Superman in the Matrix. But then in the outside realities, apparently very fragile. But is he? Because he does end up stopping the actual machines in that reality. And then that's the as above, so below, as within, so without. Yeah, we can take control of our dreams with lucid dreaming. And we can do miraculous things. We could do miraculous things right here, right now. That's the part they don't want you understanding totally. There's so many layers to everything they don't want you to understand. And, you know, so here we go. The little guy's going to be, you know, basically incubated not in mama's womb, but in an artificial womb. And, you know, again, they've already told us. We were just listening to Yuval Harari speaking about everything is going to be the integration and merger completely of the synthetic with the organic. This is their ultimate goal. And truly, this is a war, so to speak, between the natural order of things and the artificial intelligence order of things. Absolutely. We have this article, Space Aliens Are Breeding with Humans. The university instructor says, scientists say otherwise, of course, because again, follow the money. Just that simple. Follow the money. When you're talking about MIT getting together with the Federal Reserve Bank in Massachusetts, it's all about money, right? They're going to bring in the new digital currency. You know, they're working together. All these big institutions, and MIT, by the way, I think that might be number 1 or number 2. It's in like the top 3 colleges in the entire country as far as like the rankings go. Yale, Harvard, MIT, you know, we could throw in some other well-known ones. They're at the top of the heap, and yet they are completely part of the system. They're part of the system. And this system, it doesn't begin or end with Earth. That's the part we got to get through to you guys. And I know most of you guys understand this, and most of you are open to the reality that there is life elsewhere besides Earth. And again, when we're saying, okay, so we believe in creation, but we also believe in evolution. We don't really believe in the Bible, though there is some truth in the Bible. But again, there's as much, if not more, distortion than truth. Again, the controllers are the ones that control the narrative. So obviously, the most published book of all time is going to have a lot of the controllers' system in it. But yet we can see here there are those scientists that understand what's going on, but then there's the other scientists that won't, well, they can't let it out. They have to do damage control, and there's constant damage control because we're coming to realize things. Again, humanity's had amnesia, but then we're not idiots either. We can understand how we could find that these myths and these legends have grains of truth. And if we just look at it from a little different angle, it's right there and smacking us in the face.
I think the one thing that probably really woke me up the most is when I was going to church and trying to understand the Bible. As soon as I turned my lens, my perspective, just to the understanding that maybe all of these things that they're describing in the Bible with, like the clouds of smoke and something that sounded like 1,000 hoofs of horses, and some entity has eyes that were lit up like fire. Think about that for a minute. What if you just twisted your lens and realized that, what if this is technology? What if they're talking about a spaceship? And after I did that, oh gosh, I had to go back and read everything again because it made it so much clearer, and it was actually fun.
So this particular University of Oxford. Now, University of Oxford's at the top of the heap too. It's one of your top, controller institutions that there is in the world. Now, here again, they might give you something, but again, maybe it's missing the mark a little bit. And Young Hae Chi is the teacher we're talking about. He teaches Korean at the university. He also claims to know what the aliens have in mind. He lectures there, and he says that they are creating alien-human hybrids as a hedge against climate change. Yes, it's climate change again.
How about that?
Yeah, but again, we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater because, again, climate change, we understand that's the new catch-all. Well, it's not really new. It's been around for a long time. But we can see there's so many people that catch up on these things and have shared what they know. Dr. David Jacobs, American historian, retired associate professor of history at Temple, sheds light on the Greys' biological structure, claims that they were created using human DNA. Yeah, and, again, when you really look at the abduction phenomenon and you go through the work of him, for instance, remember Stanton Friedman, we could look to, and we will look to John Mack a little bit later, but all these people that have explored ufology, and they see this constant thing where it's really harvesting DNA, noticing the changes in human DNA, noticing the different pollutants in the body, noticing everything that's going on with humanity, analyzing it. It's really, truly, they've been watching every aspect of us for a very long time. Now, the thing to realize is it's not just one group that's watching us. There's multiple groups watching us. Some respect us and don't want to interfere with the things. And others, they just want to utilize us as best they can.
Well, there's always those opportunists, those parasitic energies that are wanting to know, what can I get out of this? How am I going to benefit in a very 3D kind of way? So those are the things we need to watch for.
Yeah, God, we could go on down the line. William Tompkins had done a lot as well. Richard Dolan, he's somebody that's hosted a lot of these, ufologists and shared a lot of what they have shared with us. There's so many sources for that. If you just look at it, but look to the mythology, and look to people in very high places that have confirmed. I mean, you have Paul Hellyer, we've talked about him before. He was the former Canadian Defense Minister. Do aliens exist? Yeah, absolutely. And he'll tell you where they come from. He said there's 80, again, former Canadian Defense Minister. This is really high position. He says there's 80 different species of alien life at the time of this interview back in 2014. And they come from places like Andromeda, Pleiades, Zeta Reticuli, and some of them look just like us. You would actually just walk right by them. Now think about the Bible stories. Some people have entertained angels unaware. Yes, we're talking about the same thing. Now, there are angels, and then there's beings that are interpreted to be angels. So again, do you believe in evolution? Yes. Not Darwinian, but we believe in evolution. Do you believe in creation? Yes. It's both. Do you believe in angels? Yes. Do you think that there are beings that are taken to be angels but are actually extraterrestrial? Yes. All of the above.
Indeed, all of the above. I mean, we break the rules when it comes to belief systems. We're at a point where we understand everything that has been handed to us needs to move through a filter of our own understanding, not just because it feels familiar, not just because it feels right, but because we have looked at it and measured it with those energies that we cultivate inside, and that's what we go by.
And we've had direct contact with many different extraterrestrial beings, many different interdimensional beings. In fact, with us, it's a daily thing, pretty much. It's when we are always in contact with our guides. We meditate and do mantras multiple times every day. So we're always in that state where we're receptive to getting these messages. And contrary to what people that have been brought up in the traditional mainstream religious thought, when your chakras are open, you're not open to being taken over by dark entities. It's when your chakras are closed that you can be taken over, that you can be blindsided. The majority of people out there have closed chakras, and it's part of the whole reason why you have pineal glands that are being intentionally calcified, why you have energies around you penetrating you that are disharmonious in order to interrupt and interfere with the natural order of things and your systems, in order to blur your perception. The only ones that you're subject to every single day are the demonic energies. If you are somebody that is eating a standard American diet, taking in a lot of big FARMA, not practicing a mind-body practice, not practicing things like yoga and Qigong and meditation, pranayama, etc. If you are simply allowing the media to come through you constantly without rooting, grounding, detoxing, purging, taking in all the NaNO technology, then the only thing you're surrounded by is demonic forces.
And that's why we always talk so much about how important it is to clean our temple, because that's our receiving energy from source itself. We are all an antenna, and depending on how clean our energy form is, that's how we get the information to come within. And if we're only receptive toward the EMFs that have been falsified, then we need to take a step back and figure out, okay, well, what can I do to cleanse my temple and keep myself clean and clear?
Now, there is a lot of distortion. We want to give you that too. So, because this article goes into talking about Nordic blondes and tall whites, and it also they're talking about Pleiadians and stuff. So, the contacts at the Galactic Federation that we talked to, you couldn't see them. They wouldn't appear to be a physical body at all. They've manifested for us where we've seen a glimpse of all of a sudden a ship that will manifest and pop out from a cloud. And we've seen energy wave patterns, but no physical bodies. So again, the Pleiadian beings, Lyran beings, that are with the Galactic Federation, they're not flesh and blood. If you are looking at these Nordic blondes, what you're talking about then is the ones that we call the fallen Pleiadians, the ones that have been given into, submitted to the draconian AI empire of sorts, the dark empire, and they've taken the technology into them. They've become part of the Borg. So there are some beings that you might look at and think, oh, those are the good guys. Those are Pleiadian good guys. No, they're part of the AI draconian Borg. And these beings will be rolled out there, and they will introduce them to you in the future that's upcoming. It's part of the plans.
Mm-hmm. And they'll do little by little the way they do, just a little bit here, a little bit there, nothing that's going to rock the boat too much, but enough to get people thinking and wondering.
Absolutely. So many people have had abduction experiences. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if I had to ask you, dear Cindy, what percentage of the population do you think has had either positive or negative some sort of encounter with extraterrestrial interdimensionals? Just what percentage do you think? Do you have any sort of feeling?
Well, the thing is so many people don't even realize they're being abducted. So that right there really ups the ante definitely into the double digits, far into the double digits. I would say if we add those in that don't know, almost 50%.
Wow. So again, this is something that's really impacting people on a big level that we might not be completely cognizant of. You ever, and gosh, how many people have had sleep paralysis? Right. So many people have sleep paralysis. There could be biological reasons for some. I've seen some sources say that if we don't line ourselves up, and I've kind of experienced that myself too, if we are all of a sudden shocked awake, we could be off. And I've experienced not necessarily a paralysis, but when I've awoken too quickly because of something, you feel off, you feel disjointed. It's because your astral body hasn't perfectly meshed with the physical because of that shock. And sometimes, it's caused headaches for me for a while that, the only thing that would cure is going back to sleep or going into a meditative state. So the reintegration, because again, we are layer upon layer of being. And so, there are, you do, by the way, even though what you're seeing right now is mostly from a 3D, 4D perspective, you do extend up way past that. You do. We all do. Because again, source is in us. And source can't be limited, to any one density. So there's so many people that have seen the grays. The grays are one of the most commonly seen one. They are worker bees. Now, there's many different types of grays, too, so we can't categorize them all the same.
No, absolutely not. No, I have seen grays that are actually very, very benevolent, that you would almost feel them as very elemental-like and very integrated with our own energy, something that has a happy, upbeat, that wants to teach. Very soothing, believe it or not, so again, we can't just lump everyone in all together as, okay, this is a gray, this is bad. No, we absolutely cannot do that.
Yeah, and of course, not every gray is good either. And when you realize again that, well, where are we? We're in a system that's controlled by the quote-unquote dark side, the Draco AI collective, which again, that includes the beings that we know as the Anunnaki, the EGG, and the Greys, and then the secret societies, which are abundant, and there's many of them. This is a view of Area 51, of Nellis, and of some tall whites. And, again, do you miss home? Because this is where we spent, Cindy spent 25 years over there. And I did spend a year and a half, 2 years in this area experiencing the desert and the overabundance of ships out there. And these tall grays tend to be supervisors of the small grays. And there is a hierarchy that extends over there. And again, every concept that we have comes in this age. Every concept that we have of structure comes from this hierarchy. As these guys, again, we've had direct encounters with these. We've had direct encounters with the little grays, Cindy's daughters, and my kids have also seen these grays, the little ones, and also we've seen things that are just dark and demonic that we would call more like a wraith. And again, my father, he was completely born and raised Catholic, 12 years Catholic school, and he did have a vision of the Virgin Mary. We say the Virgin Mary. Mary wasn't a virgin, but that doesn't make her any less of a woman. Quite the opposite. Again, when we get down to, do we believe in Yeshua, the real Jesus? Yes, we do. Absolutely. He's one of our prime guides, and we've worked together with him in multiple lifetimes. So we totally believe in him. Do we believe he was a blood sacrifice, died on the cross? No, absolutely not. That's a controller story. But yeah, he was here to teach us about how to ascend and how to get ready for a 5D life, and all about helping to pull the planet up, and all about uprooting the control system that's in place. So if you can't beat them, what do? Join them, right? So what the controllers did was they took, because his energy was such that he was going to alter the consciousness of the planet in one way, shape, or form. So they turned it into a blood sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. They took him and they turned him into a story for people to believe in. And you have to admit, we are very, very fond of Yeshua. Many of you know him as Jesus. This energy is so miraculous. It is so heartfelt. It's also, you hear a lot of people talk about Christ consciousness. His energy is also like at a certain vibration. And this is exactly why he came to this planet, is to show what we are capable of, and to show what our human bodies can and will do. He was a great ascended master. But yeah, they did take this story and they split it up and they made it work to their benefit. And until you wake up to that, we're kind of stuck with that one story that the controllers give us.
Yes. So how do we view him? Well, we view him, basically first and foremost as a brother, as a teacher, as a guide, as Cindy said, truly an ascended master of such a high, amazing vibrational frequency that the earth was going to change in one way, shape, or form because he was coming in. And yeah, they turned it into a blood sacrifice. And you find blood sacrifice in all the cultures that have been existent in the Kali Yuga, and also at the latter part of the Bronze Age. That's when, all this dark energy takes hold. And again, this is really truly another entire video, and we've done this before and we'll do it again. But what they do is, again, they get you to worship the messenger instead of, really understanding the message. And they take a practice that's dark and evil, blood sacrifice, no way around it, and they get you to embrace it. This is exactly how they operate. Exactly how they operate. So when you look at them, we might say alien, you might say demon. Well, it's an alien with demonic tendencies. Absolutely. You have all sorts of people claiming that they are in contact with extraterrestrials, and many are, although some with the dark ones, some with ones that you might consider benevolent. And then, there are some that are really honestly kind of indifferent. But those are very fascinating encounters, honestly. And we've had several encounters with extraterrestrial, interdimensional extraterrestrial beings that, they're not here to necessarily support us, but they're certainly not part of the system either. They're just kind of curious, and those are some real fascinating encounters.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's many who are simply here to observe. And a lot of people are able to tap into that just using their perception, but they feel, oh, I'm just imagining it, I'm just making stuff up. But no, you're actually perceiving into a different dimension, into another world, to another entity. And that's just something that they keep from us. They keep us from understanding that the world around us is, well, it's very vast.
So this woman in Arizona claims she's 2/3 alien, 1/3 human. She says she's part of a government experiment. There's various alien races on Earth like Zuma, Zeta, Tall White Zeta, and Blue Arcturian. Now, Arcturians are another group that we are regularly working with, and we are very grateful for their assistance because they are amazing beings, but they're very high vibrational. And so we don't ever see them manifesting in a 3D body. In fact, they're just basically, again, just an energy wave is how we perceive them. And yet they're very, very benevolent. And they are some of the most masterful masters of DNA and of light language.
Yes, they're definitely master healers. They're beautiful light beings, and their vibration is probably not understood by too many, but one that, would be channeled very much. It would look very much like light language.
And then we have this little one. I just wanted to share this picture because what do you see? You see some sort of humanoid baby with a gray, giving it to a being that you might interpret as a Bigfoot. When we talk about Bigfoot, Yeti, abominable snowman, Sasquatch, there's actually multiple species of those beings as well. And, that's another part that's misunderstood. There are some that are very, very benevolent. There are some that are indifferent. There are some that are, again, maybe under a little bit more darker influence. You got to realize, again, it's just like with humans. You could walk up on the street and meet an absolute saint that would do anything for anybody, even lie down their life for somebody. But then you could also encounter somebody that's a psychopathic murderer and not necessarily know right off the bat, unless you're very, very energy sensitive, who that person is and what their intentions are. But I just thought this was interesting. It's like the Greys saying to the Bigfoot, here you go, now go and deliver it. Go deliver it. Dr. Claudia Albers has done a lot of videos showing these things, what she called them again. I forget what she was calling them. But these things that attach to the sun and draw energy from the sun. Gosh, she uses a term for them, like shells or husks or something. But stellar cores, I think, is what she calls them. But anyway, you've had countless photos where you could see things tapping into the sun. Now, the sun itself can be utilized as a stargate. And yet the sun is a source of life for us. It's a source of information. It's a source of DNA downloads. It's so many things all wrapped in one. And there are benevolent beings up there. I've had not just Cindy, but other psychic, very, very gifted psychic friends see this. And by the way, it was interesting. 2 of them also have been clinically dead. And they have seen it. And they've seen the ships up there. And again, there are some benevolent ships, and there are some that are not so benevolent. We got to recognize, too, we find ourselves in the middle of an interdimensional, intergalactic battle that is ongoing, and it has been ongoing for a very long time. So we see Peter Corey here. He was abducted. Mystery of a blonde alien woman that actually left a hair on his body. This is all the way back in 1992. Now, again, it was all about copulation. Now, think about incubus and succubus. What are they? They're demons, according to our mythology. That, what do? They copulate with humans. Now, there are beings out there that can use the sexual energy to just feed off of. That is one of the most common things you'll find. And when you are looking at anything, any sort of material out there, people get addictions to these things for a reason. They get addictions to looking at certain things for a reason. You're creating a buffet, an energetic buffet, just like war is. War in the battlefield is an energetic buffet for certain beings. Same thing with this type of energy. Yet, there's also that underlying thing about creating new hybrid species. This is a reality. What was fascinating about this is that they actually found a hair on him, and they did DNA testing. The test results showed the hair was biologically close to human genetics, but came from a very unusual human race. They came up with the most likely thing being probably a very rare Chinese Mongoloid type. Yeah, interesting again. So, what exactly was it? Was it a Denisovan? Was it, something from the past that still is around? When you look really deeply into all this, there's nothing that has existed that couldn't be brought back.
And, for some people on their journey, their awakening journey, this is what they need to do. They need to go through and they need to see the evidence pointed out to them in a very 3D way. And there's plenty of stories out there to help kind of appease that human need for this 3D scientific information to prove something to us. And it's out there. There's plenty of it out there. There's like way too much out there to say, oh, every single case is just a lie. No, there's way too many cases out there to just write it off like that. And then there's so many who just have that knowing and they've had experiential, and that's why they know.
So, Abduction, Human Encounters with Aliens by John Mack. So John Mack, he regressed so many people, and this is one of the things. He was regressing people to help them deal with certain issues, and what he kept finding was a large percentage of people had the abduction experience. Why is this some sort of archetypal thing going on? What's really going on? Or are people literally being abducted? Now, it doesn't always have to be that your physical body gets abducted. It could be the etheric body is what gets abducted many times. The physical body is just staying right there. And that's something to also, keep in mind. And it could be, too, that the 5D energy body gets basically brought up into the ship if we are talking about the higher, more benevolent beings. And, this is something that not just Cindy and I, but many people that we have worked with have had these same experiences where they've been up in the ships, but it's the 5D and the higher vibrational frequency part of our energy bodies that is pulled up into the ship to get downloads and new information. And so, again, when people will say the earth is flat, and they just say that because they want to maybe prove the Bible right or something, it comes from some sort of, well, for one, that is a CIA, FBI program. The flat earth thing is completely a controller paradigm insertion into our reality. As we were talking about before, you just got to look as above, so below, and look at the shape of orbs, look at the shape of the stars, look at cellular mitosis. This is how things are. It's as above, so below, as within, so without. And of course, the controllers, they want to distort that. They don't want you knowing that they are not human, ultimately.
And there's a lot of different things that they do to get us going down a certain path and get us to where we have to kind of butt heads with one another, because we're born in such an egoic type of energy, where we're always competing in some way, shape, or form for attention, competing for toys, competing for whatever it is out there. They've managed to create some kind of competition, and with that comes the butting of heads, and I'm better, no, my dad can beat up your dad, and that's just kind of the way we've been raised. That's all we know. So when we stand back from that and just find our commonalities instead of picking out the differences, then we can get places.
Yeah, and as this says, this is, reviewing the book. His background, John Max, is almost impeccable. He's so credentialed. He was very well spoken, and he put off a good vibe. He was a logical man, absolutely. Yet he saw that there's something going on here. And like so many others that have done a great job exposing these things, he was all of a sudden gone. He was crossing the street, hit by a car. Could happen to anybody anytime. But, he's not with us anymore. And he did a lot to open up some minds. Phil Schneider, he did a lot to open up minds too. But, again, he's not with us either. And, well, he committed suicide. Yeah, or a rubber hose while he had his hands tied behind his back. Yeah, okay. Well, and then again, we could talk about William Cooper, who had a visit from the tax man and took lead to the chest. None of them with us anymore, but they were all exposing the bigger paradigm that's going on as we see a depiction of what they probably want to show a Neanderthal looking like. And yet we have a human there in a test tube. Isn't that curious? Again, how many people have shared these stories? And here we go to the Anunnaki creation story, which basically talks about creating humans from something that was already here. And again, it wasn't really a upgrade, it was a downgrade. And the species on the planet that we see all these evolutionary dead ends, many of them were far more advanced in spiritual ways than we are now.
We all have certain abilities. We all come from a little sliver of time, space, or different entities, different alien forms. So all of us have different abilities gifted from our ancestors. So, that kind of explains how so many people can have such a vast array of abilities. Some people have really amazing healing abilities, and that goes back to, a very Arcturian type of a nature. But yeah, we need to stop just thinking that we're just human. Everything is 3D, and the science books tell the truth.
Well, we're human only for a time because our ultimate nature is not human. Again, we're the eternal consciousness. That's the real us. So what we're even talking about when we're talking about humans, we're talking about a vehicle. And yet it does affect our experience. And the genetic lineages do have an effect on us. So in these Anunnaki creation stories, there's different ones out there. There's, there's a treasure trove of these writings out there. And it does talk about, basically, it sounds an awful lot like artificial insemination because, the correct way of doing things, it turns out you got to put that creation that's part Anunnaki, part human, and put it back into an Anunnaki woman in order to carry the term and have a successful, creation of the new species. Now, again, when you think about that, that happened obviously when we were on the same density. So, the Anunnaki, again, are lower fourth density, and that's where we're heading right now. We're putting our toes into the lower fourth density yet again. We're coming back home, so to speak, to their home territory on our path back up the ascension ladder. So, again, the stories are right out there. And so many people that have been abducted have seen things just like what we started looking at. These incubation eggs, so to speak, on ships, where there's not just human, but all other forms of life, too, that are out there. This is much bigger than just humanity. And we do see all over the globe these reptilian-looking beings, representations of these, definitely not Homo sapiens, but something humanoid in that, again, that figure, that star. When you think of Da Vinci's painting of man, right? And he's got the outstretched arms, the outstretched legs, and you have a pentagram shape, right? 5 points when you include the head. That type of life form is abundant out there. That is, perhaps the most common type of actual form. Of course, you might find mantis beings, ant beings, all sorts of different beings. Everything you can conceive of, all these different mythological beings, there is a basis in fact, like, feline.
Definitely.
Dogmen.
Yes, feline beings, dog men, different reptilian natures. If you look at the abundance of insects, I know that this is going to be difficult for a lot of people, but if you see what kind of insects there are here on Earth, understand there's entire worlds made up of these different beings that are in a bigger form.
Yes, Earth has been an experiment of sorts. Still is. And many of them, again, are humanoid, but not exactly Homo sapiens. And again, when we look to Nefertiti and her beautiful little headdress, you take the headdress off, what was the shape of the head? Well, it was pretty much like what you're looking at here. And we see beings, again, and go Peru. I can't wait to get to Peru. I am excited to go explore Peru at some time, hopefully. It's a bucket list thing. And I would also love to explore the Black Sea region, Anatolia, because you know what? We find beings with these heads in both places. There's a lot of hidden history here. The Igigi are 3D beings. The Igigi are 3D beings. And there's a couple of different subsets of Igigi, one of which has the elongated heads. The other one is kind of squasher.
Mm-hmm. Right. There's just so many different things out there, and science just continues just to put a big X over it and pretend that it doesn't exist when, there are other people that go out of their way and they take money out of their own pocket and they have these tests done and then they publish them, they print them. Why does this never, ever, ever make it into our science books? Why are we not told the truth about who we are and what we're capable of?
Hey, no, that's not Barry O over there. Or maybe it is. Maybe it's one of his ancestors. Maybe it was him reincarnating. Mm-hmm. And so when we look over here, we see Homo Capensis. And it truly is a species. And it's interesting because when I first started to make videos about this, and somehow the microphone sounds weird to me. So hopefully nothing's happened with our sound. But when I first started to make videos about this, you wouldn't really find that it was a distinct species, but now it is. Because we've had DNA samples that come back and say, unknown hominid, something different. When you look at the structure, there's a different amount of plates. The plates are not the same as humans. Yes, there are some human skulls that have been distorted and twisted on purpose as babies grow into little children, grow into adults. There are those tribes, there are those people that have tried to mimic the power brokers physically here on the planet that had these heads the natural way. So you do have some skulls that are Homo sapiens and some that are not. And the placement of where the spinal cord goes is totally different. And you can see the volume is totally different too. This is just a fact. These are real. Some of these are distortions. Others are legitimately a totally different species. And it's all right there in plain sight. We can see it. It's all right there. And you'll still find people that have these traits. You will still find people that have these traits. And, the whole legend of vampires, there is a basis in fact for that. There absolutely is. And there's more than one type of vampire. We've touched on this too. When you think of the Anunnaki and Nibiru, think of Dark City. Because in reality, they really don't like the light so much. And now we see scientists want to dim the sun. They want to dim the sun. They want to put more clouds up. Well, because we're getting closer to the time when they're coming back to walk amongst us. And, they don't do too well in the bright light.
No. It's everything anti-source. So you could imagine the more source energy that is coming onto the planet, the more it's going to bother them. So, it's really a very disturbing thing to think about, but it's not something that we have to settle for. We are co-creators. We can create our own timeline of that world that we all want to live in.
Yeah. When you look to this head, there is another one that's more like that. as far as the shape of the head. And then, of course, we've talked about Aleister Crowley and contacting Aiwass, and we've talked about Dr. John Dee and who they connected with there, getting the Enochian magic. Again, they were just talking to the people that are in charge of the system right now. Again, you don't have to look too far. You could see, there's so much evidence out there of the different species, the interbreeding that's going on. Again, just look to what we know. Now, they say we all came out of Africa, but there's some differences. There are some real differences between different races. Then we have Betty, Andreas, and Luca. And her visitation, her abduction experience happened in Connecticut, not too far away from where I grew up, not too far off time-wise either. These little guys would come right through solid material, right through doors, right through ceilings, and actually pull her up through the ceiling. That's because it was just basically taking the astral with her. And what did she see up there? Well, she saw some of the tall Nordic ones, along with the grays and all sorts of different species up there. She had an interesting time as well. And here you see her, going under and sharing her experience and seeing all different sorts of humanoid beings again in test tubes. And, creation of different forms of life, people that look like they're in stasis. Absolutely, there is a slave trade still ongoing, as well as, other things. You might have leftover turkey. You might have pulled your turkey from the freezer or the fridge. Well, again, as above, so below. And something to recognize the reality of what is out there. And so, interesting diagrams inside the ships and depictions of what is seen inside the ships. We see right now, coming out into the open, that which has been going on forever, just behind the scenes. And that makes you think about the stork. Where does the stork bring the babies from? I mean, the stork, that whole myth. Is there anything to that, or is that... I never thought there was any substance to it. I never gave it any second thought. What cute little thing. Where do babies come from? Well, the stork brings them from the sky.
I know, isn't it funny how these things, they always have some kind of legend or some kind of story, and you got to kind of sit down and think, where the heck does that come from? Really, the stork? Who thinks these things up?
Yeah, and then that gets me, thinking even deeper. And when we look at the legend of storks, we find that it's in folklore all around the world. It is an ancient association. It's in North Africa, Europe. It's in the Americas. It's in the Middle East. Yeah, it's fascinating. And it's in Greek mythology, too. Greek mythology is associating with, remember that jealous goddess Hera? As the story goes, Hera was not happy with a beautiful queen named Joanna, and thus she grew jealous of her and transformed the queen into a stork. The stork in this mythology is associated with stealing babies for Hera. Hera, again, she's married to Zeus there, and Juno and Juno. I'm getting the Roman one mixed up now, but Hera, Zeus, and we've been sharing that those are Anunnaki hybrids and thought forms. Is what we get. Some of the gods are literally just thought forms. Other ones are hybrids. And again, stealing babies. There's abduction, stealing babies in the mythology. Yeah, it's interesting. You have it in Norse mythology as well. It's fascinating. And also just when you look into the whole mud flood theory, and it's just, there's just so much to uncover. You guys remember Cabbage Patch Kids? They were so big when my daughter was growing up. Yeah, Cabbage Patch Kids. Cabbage Patch Kids. Cabbages giving birth to kids. And then the storks grab them and bring them to, good little kids everywhere. Aha. Did you know that was a thing? Look, this postcard, or, well, I guess it's a tag. I don't know. Was it a tag on the kid's little foot? Arrived in Portland, Willie Jr. Hey, Willie Jr. going home to Portland. Yay. Yes, these are postcards from, 100 and something years ago. Cabbage Patch Kids. What's up with that? Look at the farmer. They're growing the kids. Wait, that's really weird.
This is really, really strange, and it kind of felt disturbing. And sometimes when you go to look to see a little bit deeper meaning in things, it can be troublesome. But this is something where, once again, the controllers have to convey a message. They have to reach into people's subconscious, and they have to explain things, how things really are. And having it contact the human consciousness in a way that's not true, but it's true. It's how they tell their story of things and how certain things become. So understanding that, yes, there's this program where they do grow beings is very, very real. Once again, controllers telling the truth, yet in such a innocent way that we would never really think of these things. But when I did look, it disturbed me.
Yeah, wow. Okay, it's time to rethink the whole stork thing. The stork brings the babies from the air. And from, I guess, lily pads too. Interesting. Water, right? Lily pads, water, amniotic fluid, water, test tubes. Wow.
And then all these babies and not one set of parents in sight.
Yeah, where are all the parents? Why are all these kids on the potty? Literally.
Yep.
And then it gives you another idea about the virgin birth. Well, Jesus was born of a virgin. Well, now, after all this, does that give you a little different clue as to that? Did you know, by the way, where's Washington, D.C.? It's in Virgin, Maryland. It's in Virgin, Maryland, Washington, D.C. A little clue there, guys. Virginia, Maryland. Virgin, Maryland. That's where D.C. is. Wow. Seven Hills. Yeah. And then when we see the Annunciation of Mary, it's not just that one that I love to show all the time. I found that one after another painting postcard picture, there's always like this light beam coming either to the crown or coming to the pineal or somewhere on the head. Isn't that curious? The Annunciation. Look again. It's coming over there. Now you see the little aura, because that's what this is. Whenever you see the saints and their heads are glowing, it's their aura. It's their chakras, guys. Chakras that you're, convinced in fundamentalist point of view are evil. The only time you're under the sway of the darkness is when your chakras are closed. Because when you're talking the pineal, that's the gateway for you to truly see. If the line of thy eye be single, your body will be full of light. The crown is the connection to source and to our higher selves and to all the benevolent beings that are in the densities up ahead of us on that road to ascension. As you see the Holy Spirit, the dove, coming right down into the crown chakra from a very circular looking UFO-like cloud. Again, coming to the Virgin Mary. So again, when we look at the human family tree, what's the real story here? What is the real story here? And we were talking about him before, and as he said, we're living in the last generation of Homo sapiens. So there's going to be another branch. I guess we might as well just write it over here. Actually, there's going to be two branches. There's going to be one that's going to be an AI human hybrid, and then there's going to be another that's going to be an organic superhuman type being in comparison to what humanity has been.
Well, if we continue on this organic path, we will be one of those entities that we can phase in and phase out. We'll have complete control of our bodies. We're not going to be stuck in this plasma, extremely dense 3D era. And a lot of entities who choose to use the AI and go with the AI, they will be stuck. But we're going to be able to move in and out of densities.
And we do find some civilizations that were here yesterday and gone, all of a sudden, just gone. And there's no real definitive clue as to where they went or what happened to them. Like when we look at the Anasazi. Now, you've been to Chaco Canyon. You've felt that energy of Chaco. And, this is, well, gosh, so much of New Mexico. Like when we cross the border into New Mexico from Arizona, now there's a patch of Arizona, and who was it? It was the Eagles, had a song about the Winslow, Arizona, right? Well, I tell you, the energy around Winslow and south of there towards that gigantic asteroid impact, it really wasn't an asteroid, it was more of a weapon. Horrible. I mean, because the catastrophe that happened there claimed so many lives, and it was part of a war, and I was there in that war in a different life. And I do want to thank the guides for allowing me to have that understanding, because, for some reason, that whole area just, honestly, it made me feel like PTSD from being a soldier serving somewhere, especially from fear of something coming from the sky. But that's exactly what did happen, as that this was part of that civilization that we might call Tartaria that was wiped out. Again, who were the mound builders? And we've touched on these things, and I think we need to revisit a lot of this again to refresh and to add new perspective to it. There's been some very advanced humanoid beings on the planet that are not Homo sapiens, not Neanderthal, not Denisovans, not truly categorized otherwise, besides just terms like Nephilim and Rephaim and others, in which, again, we're getting a distorted perception of what was really going on there. And there's been wars upon this planet that we haven't seen anything of the likes of in our modern history, even what would be to come right now with the technology that's been on display so far. Just staggering what's gone on. But some cultures, they've ascended. They just decided they're not going to be here anymore. And so, they again got themselves outside of the system, and, they did things their way. They focused on the spiritual aspects, and they moved up, and they're happy. They're in a new place. This is what's happened too with some of the beings, again, that we would call Bigfoot, Yeti, Abominable Snowman, Sasquatch. They ascended. Some of them still are here. They're primarily on fourth density, and can come in and out.
Mm-hmm. And the modern science, makes it seem like such a huge impossibility. But if you take modern science and look how many times they've had to rewrite it again and again and again, well, then you start to realize, gosh, maybe there's things out there that, we haven't been told about, or we don't know about, or we can actually tap into. If we learn to reach our highest self, even our higher self, our guides, our angels, getting this information is not impossible. But the controllers have made things so it does make it quite difficult to reach the true information, because we have to go through a lot of different doorways. Right now we're so surrounded by EMFs, and I can't stress enough about how our diet can block this information from coming to us. We have to really work on, when that temple is clear, the information is clear.
Absolutely. And so this is a list of 10 other groups of peoples that they don't know definitively what happened to them. And when we think to the Mayan calendar, all the technology, the understanding that they had, they were very advanced. They were very advanced in many ways, yet they chose to live with harmony with the earth, the Olmecs. And there's so many others in here as well that they touch on. Some of them, it could be a very different story. I mean, what the Indus Valley civilization went through was, the wars of the gods. And this was the Anunnaki, EGG, draconian takeover. And, again, many of the people in the Indus Valley situation have ascended and have gone upward because, again, the knowledge there, that's where we get so much of our true knowledge that is still giving us golden age instruction on the reality that we find ourselves in. And so, there's so many out there that have become quote unquote breakaway civilizations, so to speak, in their ascension process. And this is what's going to happen again. It may be that the majority of people end up, taking the easy way out. Let's wake up as many as we possibly can so they can understand that where we're going now, we don't need any of their stuff. None. Why would people live in harmony simply on the earth when they have the technology to go and explore the stars? Well, because you don't need technology to explore the stars. You don't. You need a Merkaba, a light body that's activated. Then you could go anywhere. You just have to think it. And we do have communication with several beings that are not from here. Not even, there's one that's not even from this particular universe itself per se, but is able to come in and out and is an amazingly benevolent being as well. And you'll know by the energy. If a being is going to come and just give you nothing but love and, positive vibrations and even helping you heal in certain ways or helping you with healing others, it's not a dark entity. No, it's pretty obvious who the dark entities are.
Mm-hmm. You start to really feel everything, and then you do go by feel and what's coming through the heart chakra. So once you get that information and you have a signature of it, you never forget that. You never forget that feeling of love and acceptance coming from an entity.
Absolutely. So thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon, guys. Much love. May you be blessed by the true creator, and may your ascension process be a smooth one.
Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.